Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. Thank you for joining me today. It is Monday, April the 6th, and it's Easter Monday. Happy Easter Monday. I hope you guys all had a great Easter. And I was at work today. I don't know how many of you had to go to work today. It's not really a statutory holiday. A lot of government offices are closed, but I work in a doctor's office, so we were open. Today, I'm going to bring you something special. Scarlett's Little Crafty Corner is hosting for Diamond Painting with Friends 2.0. She is hosting the 80s, and I thought it was a great idea to do a crime story from the 80s. So this is going to be crime story number 11 that took place in the 80s. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this crime story. I'm not sure how much publicity it got in the States, but it was really widely publicized in Canada here. You guys may have heard about it, but before I get to that, I am working on this one. I showed it to you. It is Rainbow Girl. I just got the camera set up because I'm going to be doing this section here. And I didn't realize this. Maybe I did when I unbagged it. I unbagged it a long time ago. It's from GBFKE. It is a 40 by 60. It has 48 colors with ABs. So yeah, so it's Rainbow Girl, and she looks decked out like she belongs in the 80s. And so yeah, it's Scarlett's Little Crafty Corner. She's hosting the 80s for Diamond Painting with Friends 2.0. And I just thought it would be a great idea to do a crime story from that time, a Canadian true crime story. So yeah, I'm gonna take out some drills and I'm gonna do some with you. I think I have like 12 pages of notebook notes. I watched this crime story twice. I watched it once, enjoyed it, and then I said I have to do a crime story on it because it was really all over the news back in the 80s. And yeah, so what's interesting about this diamond painting is that the symbols don't go vertically like this. I have to do the diamond painting with the symbols are facing this way. So yeah, it's really interesting. But yeah, I'm not going to let it be bothered. Like I said, it's from GBFKE, 40 by 60, 48 colors. So I'm going to take out some diamonds and do some diamond painting with you while I talk to you about a crime story from 1984, October 3rd, 1984. This took place. It was the Christine Jessup story. It is on Netflix. It features 3 episodes. And it takes place in Queensville, Ontario. I am from Ontario. It is 1 hour north of Toronto. I live about half an hour north of Toronto. And 9-year-old Christine Jessup disappeared on October 3rd, 1984, on her way home from school. So yeah, let's get out some, I think I have the small letter E. These are very small. Okay, so it's number 25 for the small letter E. I have all 48 in here. They barely fit. So number 25, it is an AB. So I'm just going to put some in my tray while I talk about 9-year-old Christine Jessup. Can you see me? So about that time, October 3rd, 1984, Christine Jessup, 9 years old, disappeared from her home in Queensville, Ontario, Canada. Numerous volunteers at the time. The police were searching through cornfields, swamps, and fields. The story is narrated mostly by her older adopted brother, Kenneth Jessup. And it features an idyllic small town that back then in 1984, you didn't have to lock your doors when you were a child and you went to play outside. You left early in the morning and you came home when the lights came out. At the time, in 1983, the Jessup family was living on a boat because the father, Bob, they lost their home to bad financial deals. He was also an alcoholic. Christine and Kenneth were raised mostly by their mother, Janet. Janet and Bob were told they couldn't have children, so they adopted Ken. Then a few years later, they had Christine, a miracle baby. And Ken and Christine they grew to be very close. Christine played baseball in the town's league. Her coach, Mr. Lundgren, Michael Lundgren, was the father figure in her life, and everybody commented on how small she was for her age. In September 1984, Christine's father, Bob Jessup, was charged with misappropriate of funds. He was in charge of looking after some money for his uncle, who was special needs. He gambled away $70,000 to $100,000, and he spent 18 months in jail. Christine went missing October 3rd, 1984. Her mother went to see her husband in jail earlier that day, and she was supposed to go to school. But Christine didn't want to go to school. She was really upset. She wanted to see her dad. Her dad was her hero. He was at the Toronto Detention Center at the time. After returning home by around 4 or 4:15, they found that Christine was missing. Her mother said that her bicycle was lying on the ground, and it was very unusual for Christine to leave her bike lying on the ground, and they thought something was amiss from that point. They noticed also that the mail had been picked up, the newspaper had been picked up, so it seemed that she had come home. Her backpack was on the table. Her mom was suspicious after some time. She went to the park and she wasn't there. She called, and then that's when she decided to call the police. At that time, like I said before, if you were a child in 1984 and you went out to play, you had to be back when the street lights came on. By 8 p.m., police and neighbors were at the house, and it was a chaotic scene. She was last seen at 3:45 on the school bus. Janet and Ken searched for 3 hours and then called the police. Her cousin Kim remembers walking through cornfields feeling claustrophobic. It was very scary, and she didn't want to find her body. She did, but she didn't, if you know what I mean. The first 48 hours are always critical in any missing persons case. If you don't solve the case within 48 hours, it will take longer for the case to be solved. Around the time in 1984, there were a lot of children going missing, so ads were going up teaching children to be aware of their surroundings. Shows were also airing special episodes about kidnapping, teaching children what to do. 72 hours after the disappearance, on October 6th, Bob Jessup was released from jail to help search for his daughter. 1 week after she went missing, the town starts speculating that someone has taken her. Parents were more vigilant about their children's whereabouts. Christmas came and went without Christine. New Year's Eve in 1984, 84 days, Bob and Janet had their worst fight, and Janet wanted to go to the U.S. to reach out to John Walsh at America's Most Wanted to see if he could find Christine. Bob was trying to convince Janet that Christine was gone. They found Christine's body 40 kilometers away from her home in Sunderland. She was murdered and sexually assaulted. She was identified through her clothing and a recorder she had been given at school. Now the investigators began to investigate her death. A lady in the area says she heard screams on October 3rd. Police passed it off as a town drunk and thought the lady was looking for attention. Soon after, Ken and his mom went to the area where Christine's body was found, and Ken stayed there, and his mom went to where the lady said she heard the screams. Janet screamed, "Help, help." Okay, I'll just pick up where I left off. So Ken and his mom went to the area where Christine's body was found, and Ken stayed there, and his mom went to where the lady said she was. She heard the screams. Where the lady said she heard the screams. Janet screamed, "Help, help." Ken said in the documentary that he could hear her clearly, but he wanted to spare his mom because he didn't want her to know or think that Christine's screams were ignored by the police. Several police jurisdictions were notified on October 3rd after Christine's disappearance. One jurisdiction took over the other, which was York Regional and Durham Police. No conversations was had between the two. It was said that Christine's case would probably have been solved if they did investigate, and the screams heard would have been okay. I can't even read my handwriting, guys. I'm reading my handwriting and I can't even do that. It was said that Christine's case would probably have been solved if they did, and the screams heard would have been investigated, but they weren't. Christine's brother Ken, on the night before her funeral, was alone with the casket, and he was sobbing and tried to open the casket. When he got it opened, he felt that not all of her body was retrieved. He became insistent that all of her bones were not recovered, and was right, because after the funeral, they all, which is Ken, Janet, and Bob, drove to the site where Christine's body was found. They looked around for about an hour. They were about to leave, and Ken looked down to find a pile of bones in front of them that the police missed. He looked around for an empty coffee cup and picked up her bones, carried them into the police station. The police were shocked. Investigation started as to who may have kidnapped her. The FBI released an idea of the type of person who would do this. They discover that it was someone she knew. The person would have been young, friendly, possibly someone who met her when she went to the general store after she got off the bus, when she was going home from school that day. He was a neighbor of the Jessups. Apparently, he was a quiet person, probably involved in the other murders. The name Guy Paul Moran was mentioned. In Part 2, Episode 2, Ken opens Part 2 of how his life as a 14-year-old who was deeply affected and felt enormous guilt for not protecting his sister. Guy Paul Moran, his sister, was interviewed, and she described his life, his family life, and how talented he was, and it couldn't possibly be him that did it. His parents were asked to look out for Christine. I'm not putting many diamonds down, am I? I'm just reading here. Let me just put some diamonds down. Pretty shocking, huh? On April 22nd, 1985, a raid was conducted and Guy Paul Moran was arrested for Christine's disappearance and murder. His DNA matched to her clothes. People in the community were relieved they had a suspect. Trial began in January of 1986. A change of venue from Toronto to London. Hair follicles were introduced. An inside informant, an inmate, said that Guy Paul Moran confessed to killing Christine. Guy Paul Moran referred to the movie The Shining in his confession. A police officer posed as a convict in the jail cell with Moran. Guy Paul said he stabbed Christine. Guy Paul's sister said this was circumstantial evidence and there was no proof. Guy Paul was assessed by a psychiatrist as schizophrenic. The jury went out to deliberate. All thought he was guilty until proven innocent. Jury was out for 14 hours. Finally, the verdict came back. He was not guilty. What? There was outrage from the court. The family was devastated. They had to start from scratch. Guy Paul Moran was able to move back next door to the Jessups. Christine's baseball coach saw him in the community and threw a rock at him at his dad's car and told him to get out of town. Michael Lundgren, who was the coach, drew up a petition and have the neighbors sign to get him out of town. He labeled it that Guy Paul Moran was a perceived threat. A plea went out for a retrial. The judge gave misinformation to the jury about reasonable doubt. Guy Paul Moran was arrested again. Christine's body was exhumed because bones discovered were not shared with the defense. 2 autopsies conducted show a worse crime scene than anticipated. Brutally beaten, many fractures. Guy Paul Moran was put on trial again in May of 1991. Evidence presented that possibly an attempt at decapitation took place. It was found not to be the case. Ken Jessup takes the stand and he reveals that he had been sexually abused from the ages of 7 to 12 years old. Christine was briefly involved. It was brought to the attention of the media. He had a 5-year sexual relationship with his sister. He was labeled as a rapist. He was suicidal for a time. The first trial lasted 1 month. The second jury was out for days. He was sentenced to life. An appeal was made in March 1994. After 10 years, Guy Paul Moran was set free due to introduction of DNA evidence. And the DNA was very new at the time. Part 3. Guy Paul Moran is innocent. A new investigation starts. The killer is still out there. In 1985, the crime scene was not taken care of properly. It was discovered. An inquiry was done to investigate further. There was evidence from a chief officer keeping 2 notebooks of the same crime, which is not supposed to be done. Evidence was tampered with. Then Ken and his mom were questioned about the timing of their arrival home that day that Christine disappeared. The inquiry concludes and the jury says the case was severely mishandled. The case remains open but cold, but nothing shows up about the case. After much sophisticated DNA tapping and careful genealogy tracing, they found on October 9th, 2020, her killer was Calvin Hoover. He had committed suicide, but was found through evidence of DNA. He was found to be the one whose DNA was matched to the crime scene. He was 28 years old in 1984. He was well known to the Jessup family. Calvin worked with Christine's father. Calvin lured Christine by telling her she was going to see her father in jail. Wow. Talk about DNA when it was brand new and fresh and they could try the right person. I remember this case. It was very sad. And to see her brother on screen, he was her adoptive brother. At first, when I first saw the Netflix special, I thought that was her real brother, but he was adopted. And then they had Christine because they thought they couldn't have children. But it was very emotional. They had a lot of people. I recognized one of the lawyers / reporters from Toronto, the computers from the 80s. It was crazy. So guys, what did you think of that? A true 80s crime, 1984. Do you guys in the States know about this crime? Did you hear about it? Because it was widely known in Canada, and I'm not sure how far it went in terms of being public. So let me know in the comments if you had heard about this case of Christine Jessup, the 9-year-old that went missing in Ontario, a small suburban town an hour north of Toronto, on a October day. She was lured by a man who was well known to the family. He told her that he was going to take her to visit her father, and that's what she wanted. She believed him, and then he killed her and sexually assaulted her. The first man was released and free, Guy Paul Morin. He was in jail for 10 years for a crime he didn't commit. But people thought he was guilty because he lived next door to the Jessups. But it wasn't him. Isn't that crazy, guys? Well, I put some diamonds on here to start. It's 6 days late, but I started it. I don't know when I'm gonna finish it. I've done a diamond painting like this where, you know, the painting is vertical this way, but you're working on it this way. It's pretty strange, but I'll work on it. You see how much I've done? Not much. When I do these crime stories, I'm mostly reading my notes and talking to you about them. And I don't get much diamond painting done. But I hope you enjoyed the crime story from 1984 in honor of the 80s being hosted by Scarlett's Little Crafty Corner. I'm going to link her YouTube channel below. I'm going to link the Diamond Painting with Friends Facebook group down below. Go have a look if you're part of the group. Scarlett also has some trivia. And also this month, Crafty Chef Diamond is hosting military and first responders. So if you have any diamond paintings or any kind of craft to do with military first responders, you can go join Crafty Chef Diamond. I can link her as well. And you can go check out her channel. She did a couple of videos. She was in Florida and she was doing a tour of some Air Force monuments. So go have a look. She really interesting footage. So I'll link her down below. If you haven't gone to visit Crafty Chef Diamond, go watch her channel. She's done a couple of videos now from Florida where she did some tours of some military base. And it's really interesting. So I want to thank you. I didn't do much, but I put my first few diamonds down. Thank you so much for listening to my crime story today. If you have a crime story that you want me to research and talk about, please leave it down below. And again, please let me know if you've heard of this crime story. It was Canadian, but I'm not sure how far it got and who heard. So if you're in the United States or anywhere else and you heard about Christine Jessup back in 1984, let me know. I'd love to hear what you thought. And I want to thank you for joining me today, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks, everybody. Bye.